Hello everybody and welcome to this Tyde Talk on Dead by Daylight's current state of game as of patch 2.6.3. I was working on the Dark Times video, but it's been building up that there's been a lot of crazy things happening in the current state of the game that it kind of needs to be addressed now. The worst part is the game is currently entering a second period of Dark Times with the all new issues, unlike the prior Dark Times of 2017. There's a lot of Dark Times talk, I apologize, but moving on. After the recent patch introducing the Plague in patch 2.6.0 and Ash from patch 2.6.3, we saw a variety of changes, both good and bad. The positive change was a killer that was a fresh addition from the Legion. Plague and Jane were a very welcomed addition to the game, and Ash coming in 2.6.3. However, the two major changes that put this game in a questionable state was the new Pipping requirements and matchmaking. We'll start with the matchmaking changes, as we would see this implemented and changed several times throughout the weeks. With the release of patch 2.6.0 on March 19th, we saw the implementation of the new matchmaking. We'll call the original matchmaking A and the new one B. This new implementation of B would introduce a queue and estimated wait time that would be common in a game with dedicated servers. This would go to show that Dead by Daylight is attempting to improve the matchmaking while also preparing for the summer dedicated servers this year. However, this caused massive problems for several players at higher ranks as they found less games, and the killers were in a very odd spot as well. Killers had to wait at least a 5-minute queue to even begin hosting a lobby, which then they had to wait for the lobby to fill with survivors. For my personal experiences with this, I actually had to stop streaming killer games during this time as it was a crazy wait and would take about 10 minutes to get into a game that would last about 10 minutes. With all the issues Matchmaking B was causing, the developers would revert it on March 25th. 2 days later, on March 27th, they would implement another new matchmaking called Matchmaking C. With Matchmaking C, the idea was to improve on separating queues into 3 separate regions. Per the forum post regarding matchmaking, it was meant to improve geolocation. This, however, still did not fix issues for several players unable to even find a lobby at rank 1. It wouldn't be until March 29th that the matchmaking would be reverted back to A. With all these changes, there was a bit of impact with the player base. With all the lobbies in turmoil, this wouldn't be the only problem plaguing the game. Ever since the recent patch, Dead by Daylight has been suffering poorly from an unidentified issue that is also causing players to constantly crash during a game or freeze during the loading screen. From my personal experience, I've had a mass amount of my games end up as a 3 vs 1 with a full set of 5 generators since the players would leave randomly in the middle of the game. There is typically a way to detect whether they intentionally left or their game disconnected them, which would be by the indication noise. If the disconnect icon appears but no noise is had when they quit, then that was the game disconnecting them forcefully. Whereas if there was the indication noise that somebody quit, that was them leaving on their own accord. Overall, it seems that behavior's not really working to correct this disconnection issue. Even if they were to fix the crashes, that still doesn't stop survivors from leaving the game or killers from quitting mid-game just because they got a little tilted. The punishment isn't being had, and it's showing through the Fog Whisperers as well, as several of them have even abused the disconnecting to their advantage, knowing full well behavior will not act against them, even when it's called out. This all ties into our current biggest problem, which is also the new Pipping requirements. It is true that there is no incentive to reach a higher rank and maintain it, but the rank system is there for a purpose. It's there to separate veteran players, this doesn't mean skill, it just means players who are familiar with the game, from the new players, which are those who are still trying to grasp the basics of the game and learn their way up to the higher ranks. Those who have a grasp on the game should ultimately be at a higher rank, so that the lower ranks can continue to learn at their own pace. The old pip system was a bit generous and absolutely needed a change, but the current settings are so atrocious that it leaves your rank simply to luck. If the killer performs well, and they are punished, as they're meant to toy with the survivors to supposedly provide a better experience for them, and then they get their pip. This comes at a risk that the survivors happen to manage through the generosity, and then make a comeback, ultimately taking away the win from the killer. If the killer doesn't end up killing everybody with their specific rules, then the killer does not get the reward. And if the killer was generous and even one person slips out, even via the hatch, it's not worth it for the killer. However, it works the same way for survivors as well. Killers that lack skill to hunt high-level survivors will ultimately punish the survivors, as they don't get the proper opportunity to score enough points to earn a single pip without farming the killer and promoting a very prolonged game of teabagging, because you need to stay close to the killer to get those extra points to get that pip. The new pip system is massively flawed, as it no longer fits what it was originally intended to do. For both killers and survivors, the rank system no longer grades on how well you do, but is instead that you forced everything to happen at its maximum in order to do well and move on. I'll cover the survivor side as an example to the emblem system. You may know that the 4 emblems for survivors is Lightbringer, Unbroken, Benevolence, and Evader. In order to pip in the purple ranks at least, you need 12 emblem points, 13 for red ranks, which means you need approximately a gold in every single category, and any category that does not get a gold emblem would have to be made up for in another. So if you notice, these 4 categories are divided in a way that we're supposed to reward a player specifically for their play style. You didn't have to be a gen jockey in order to rank up. You didn't have to be someone who had to be chased. As long as you got the generators to get your team out of there, you were rewarded. You were rewarded for not even being downed, but now you have to do everything perfectly, from not getting downed, from doing several generators, saving several people, and being chased for a good period of time to even pip. Now you might think that sounds like you need a bit of skill to make that happen, but unfortunately the way that the game is set up, it actually requires you to have a lot of luck that things go your way to even have the opportunity to get points in the first place. Let me explain. For Lightbringer, you need to work on about 2 full generators by yourself for a gold, and 2.5 for iridescent. Of course, there's small points you can gain on the side, but we can, again, cover that in a more detailed video. The issue here is you have 4 survivors to share these points, which makes it difficult for all survivors to do well in this category without letting the killer regress the generators or damaging the generator yourself to get more points on that generator. Repairing generators isn't hard, of course, just M1, but at times you're the player who can't work on generators because you're the bait for the killer. You can't be chased and work on 2 separate generators, and while you're being chased, other survivors are working on the limited amount of generators. This is very damning to you if the generators are completed and you only get to work on 1 the entire game. This falls under luck, as you have to be lucky to be the one to get 2 generators done before all generators are completed. Unbroken is also very simple. If you escape, you get gold, and if you never get downed, you get iridescent. And it's very unlikely that you're never gonna get downed if you're the one making saves, getting chases, and working on generators. So we have to say that you're likely going to get a gold in this category because you got out, but you got downed at some point in the chase. Benevolence is also another simple emblem, but requires a bit of competition between the survivors. In order to score a gold, you have to save 1 person off the hook safely and make half of a heal at least, or do 2.5 full heals. Anytime a survivor would die on the hook after remaining on the hook for 10 seconds, that'll hurt your score, and if you made an unsafe save, that actually sets you back an entire hook and a half. That means in order to make up that unsafe save, you have to save 2 people and heal 2 people. The issue with Benevolence is that it is hard to get if the survivors dominate the game. If no one gets downed and a killer gets looped like a potato, or even just downs 1 person, this means that there's either no chance to make a save or just that 1 chance to make a save to score a gold, while everyone else is left with a bronze because they weren't able to unhook somebody. Of course, you might be able to get a heal here and there, but that's hopefully if your ally doesn't self-care. The problem gets worse when you realize that in order for many survivors to get better points in this category, others have to be injured and either farm each other for heals or continuously make saves even if that would cost them their life. If you were ever downed, you lose your iridescent in Unbroken, and it becomes far more worth it to earn that iridescent in Benevolence at that point. And, well, it's kind of worth it to take a death to get a silver in Unbroken and an iridescent in Benevolence. Evader is also the worst emblem, as if you were the gen jockey, you will likely have none of this. How this one works is extremely complicated, but essentially can be summarized in two categories: stealth and chase. Stealth is when you are very close to the killer without a chase occurring. The closer you are, the more points you get per second. To start a chase, you have to be sprinting in the killer's vision. Being 5 meters away from the killer, while not in chase, is extremely rewarding, possibly the fastest way to get the emblem, as long as you remain out of sight, or you could even crouch in sight, but they'll likely attack you. But it is the fastest way to build up the emblem. The second side of this is chase, where you activate chase with sprinting and must avoid being hit for as long as possible. For each hit you take, you do lose a few points, but for every 15 seconds of not taking a hit, you bank these points. The closer the killer is during the chase, the more points you get per second, plus you get a kind of flat bonus every 15 seconds. One of the largest benefits of this is if you happen to break chase without taking damage, you will end up doubling whatever score you ended up banking during the chase. Bit complicated, I know, but essentially, the closer they are, for the longer they are during a chase, the better it is for you. Every time you take a hit, it resets the chase. Originally, I did not like this emblem for its stealth side, as I felt it was really dumb. You could just crouch 5 meters away from a killer and boost your points massively, but there are issues with the chase side as well, and that has to do with the design of majority of the killers. We could take a couple of killers as example to explain my point. Legion is one of the biggest offenders, being able to hit you several times before 15 seconds even passes. He could jump over pallets and windows, closing the gap with his sprint burst and shove his knife so far up your ass, you're not getting away. They even hit you one time and walk backwards with Bloodhound in order to kind of let you bleed out without initiating a chase. You're likely to get a little bit of stealth from this, but if you get too close, they'll just bop you one upside the head. With this, you've lost more points than there is to gain, and it's extremely hard to get the Evader emblem on him. Huntress is another problem, and let me give you an example of how I play against Huntress. When I hear the lullaby, it gives me a direction that I know she'll be coming from, and if I'm not in a safe location with plenty of cover to dodge the hatchets with, I will begin sprinting early so that she cannot make accurate throws. A Huntress is typically to get close enough to you, even though she is ranged, because charging a hatchet at about a 15-meter radius, maybe a little further, allows them to make almost guaranteed throws of the hatchets that cannot be avoided. And with that, it's just wise for a Huntress to be accurate up close. So a Huntress is slightly slower, so getting a head start with, let's say, Sprint Burst or Lithe or any other exhaustion perk you have, it'll actually punish you if you don't let her get close into the hatchet range and become a massive threat to you. And due to this, you're punished for playing smart to stay away from the Huntress. If you were to take her around a very large loop that she cannot throw hatchets through because of some wall, such as Coal Tower or the Groaning Storehouse, for example, then you're punished because you're not letting her get close enough, even though you are completely avoiding and evading her, and even if she is chasing you, unless you are in range to start a chase with the music going off, it doesn't count for anything. So you would likely get nothing, you're wasting your own time, and unfortunately, it doesn't feel like you're being rewarded for playing smart. Spirit's another issue with Evader, as she goes invisible through phase shifting and does not chase you. So you're likely to get a little more stealth while she chases you, but she is more likely to hit you down than for you to get any Evader against her. Nurse is another issue. You are not going to get much chaser on a Nurse because she doesn't chase you. It is more likely that you go down into blinks than actually give Nurse chase. Now, if the Nurse misses a ton of blinks and you constantly start and end the chase quickly, you might build some points, and that's fantastic. But when was the last time you've seen a rank 1 Nurse on PC really let that happen? Especially with Omega blinks, good luck. It's very hard to get close enough to get that chase going and to keep it going. And every time you likely dodge a Nurse, you did it because you took cover and tricked the Nurse. And by doing so, you didn't get any chaser because your vision was broken. And you could start it back up, but you're going to start chase, you're going to take cover, you're not going to get a Vader, because you're getting less than 15 seconds of a pure chase, and that is ultimately hurting you. Now, of course, some of you might not even care about pips, or even wonder, why does this matter? We care because somewhere deep down, for us, it doesn't feel good to be told you didn't win. When you escaped with all your friends and totally smashed that killer's feelings into the ground. And it really doesn't feel good to know you didn't win when you got a 4K with those hot Omega nurse blinks and destroyed those survivors before they could even accomplish a generator. Even if you don't care about your rank, the game is there to tell you that, well, you're just not lucky enough to rank up. And even if you do well on an average, you're still more likely to safety, which is a tie, than actually move up in rank. And with that, if any killer or survivor does something to, I don't know, ruin your game, such as an early Mori focus tunneling, face camping, a survivor disconnects your team to sandbags you, whatever, then you just end up losing, and then you lose your pip, and you're more stuck at this phase of, I'm just at the mercy of whether the game leaves people in the game for me to play with, or just throws them out so I can suffer. The state of the game is pretty bad, and it seems we're heading into another dark time since the last one in 2017. The player base has dropped significantly, and they were only able to stop the hemorrhaging of PC players by introducing a free weekend. Even since February 2019, we've declined a total of 27% of the average PC player base. I don't have statistics for PS4 and Xbox, I do apologize, but the rumors have it those are even worse, but I'm not able to confirm that. With a frustrating pip system, matchmaking that ruined lobbies, and constant disconnecting, it seems we have a game that is in dire need of a fix. This isn't to include any balance changes or frustrations from gameplay itself. It was important to cover this topic because if developers are not aware of this situation, they're not going to fix the issue. There's so much more to be said about these individual issues, but again, it was just important to make everyone aware of what's going on around us now. I'm still going to work on the Dark Times video to show what history had for us back then, and maybe even compare it to what we're going into now. Hopefully Dead by Daylight makes a bounce back up. One of the biggest things about Dead by Daylight is it's always been a roller coaster of a player base, but as of last year, it was riding such a high, I'm not sure what happened, which dipped us so far back down. And I would actually love to see this game thrive, and I do have some ideas for some solutions in terms of what could be fixed here and there, but that would be for another video. Thank you everybody for watching. What are your thoughts on the current state of the game? What are your experiences? Do you think it's not as bad as it sounds, or do you experience everything I've said? Please share your experience down in the comments below. Feel free to discuss it. The more we make the developers aware of the issues that plague us, the more likely they are to fix it, but it wouldn't be able to be done without the community coming together and understanding the same situation and coming up with one solution instead of several others. Again, thank you all for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and I'll have that Dark Times video out next. I do apologize for this one, but it was a bit of an emergency. And as always, good game.